Hey, Shalom Akim. First, foremost, give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Rachakudash, double honors under the elders, Apostles' Great Millstone, the elders' Great Millstone, and of course, peace and blessings under the hopeful elect, the sincere servants of Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, serve him in truth and sincerity. Yeah, so I'm the brother Chayaba from Zeman's Plain Devil's Camp. Come back with another lesson to the spirit. Yes, this lesson be based off of what the Israelites will rule. And I wanted to focus on that word for rule, but we can go ahead and read verse 1 of Isaiah chapter 14. It says, "For the Lord Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave the house of Jacob." Of course, what? The Lord's going to have mercy on Jacob and yet choose Israel. Why? Because the Lord's people are the Israelites. The Lord chose above all other nations, the Lord chose Israel. Deuteronomy 7:6. It says, "For thou art an holy people unto the Lord Yahweh thy power. The Lord Yahweh thy power hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth." See, so the Lord has chosen the Israelites, the nation of Israel, above all other nations. So it says Isaiah, and also what verse 1 says, the strangers shall be joined with them. Yeah, exactly, and we know the strangers are ultimately what the Israelite foreigners. It says, "And they shall cleave to the house of Jacob." Yeah, so ultimately all Israel will, because we're going to be changed in those new bodies. What the scriptures speak about in Revelation chapter 7 and 9, about how what the innumerable multitude, John saw an innumerable multitude being lifted up, basically. And what the innumerable multitude was people of all appearances, or Israelites with all appearances. Because, the Lord's only going to save Israel. But, again, you have a lot of our people who have the appearance of these other nations. Because, again, our people have been scattered. Deuteronomy chapter 28:64. So, yeah, that's why John saw the innumerable multitude. And then what the angel asked him, pretty much, do you know who these are? And then pretty much what John said, what thou knowest, because again, it was an innumerable multitude, but they had different appearances. So it says Isaiah chapter 14:2, "And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord Yahweh for servants and handmaids." It says, "And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors." Yeah, right now being oppressed, and who's them? It says, "And the people shall take them." Yeah, and ultimately what? And what? Who's them? Ultimately, those are the heathen. We're gonna take the heathen. It says what? "And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord Yahweh for servants and handmaids." Yeah. So they're going to become our servants and handmaids. They're going to bow down to us. It says, "And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors." Exactly. So right now the Israelites, and by the way, what the real biblical Israelites are in a downtrodden state right now. We're, the lowest of all people right now. Well, financially, on average, we're the lowest financially. We're pretty much the lowest in society, systematically. This system is designed against our people. And what that shows you that, again, and you see how that's happening towards the so-called blacks, Native Americans, Latinos, and what the curses affect us, Deuteronomy chapter 28:14 on down, what the curses affected our people. And you see how it affects all of us. And what? And I'm speaking about every single curse. No other nation what has had these curses. Every single one, Deuteronomy chapter 14, put upon them like what we have. Showing that what? We are those people. It says, and they shall take them as captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. Yeah, right now we're being ruled over by Esau and the heathen. Esau, of course, being the so-called white man. Ever since, 1492, 1619, we've been oppressed, and we've been conquered as a people, and we've been put into slavery, and we're still in slavery unto this day. It's just what slavery is now in a different form. Before it was chattel slavery, but now we're slaves under the system. What this system is designed against our people, first and foremost, 100%. So all the things that the heathen have done towards us was going to be done unto them. How they're ruling over us, well, we're going to rule over them. And, you might say, oh, well, because, well, you have pretty much, well, you have the people who say, well, if Israel's putting the other nations in slavery, how come, they don't go in slavery, too? If, that's not how the Lord deals. The Lord deals only with his people. Really, what the Israelites are supposed to be ruling over all the nations. And that's how the Lord set it up. So, no, it's off for the other nations to be above us, but the Lord uses that as a punishment towards our people for our disobedience. So whenever you see us, whenever Israel has been put into captivity, that's because that was, ultimately that was a judgment unto them for being disobedient unto the Lord. So the Lord gave power unto the enemies, the heathen, our enemies, and what they ruled. And and right now they're ruling over us. But we're in that point where the Lord's stirring up the minds of the elect of the nation of Israel, and what the elect are coming back unto Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. So what the Lord's speeding up the times for the elect's sake, so that way He can ultimately deliver them. Because as we know, it's getting real bad out here, and it's going to continue to get worse. The rest of these prophecies will play out. Ultimately, we're waiting for that main prophecy before the coming of Yahushua, and before the nuclear war, which is the implementation of the mark of the beast, which is the implant, the electronic implant that they want to put in everybody, by the way of a needle. So it says Genesis chapter 27, what? And ultimately, this is a blessing that Isaac gave unto Jacob, which, of course, what Jacob supplanting Esau of his blessing. But ultimately, that's how the Lord set it up. Why? Because as scriptures say, the Lord hath hated Esau, and the Lord doesn't change. He hated Esau from the beginning. So that's how the Lord set it up. That's why He allowed, Isaac to not know that it was Jacob. What he allowed pretty much Jacob to supplant Esau. That's how the Lord set it up. It says, Genesis chapter 27 and 28, therefore the Most High give thee the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth, and plenty corn. So, and you can read up a little bit, but getting straight to the point. This is Isaac blessing Jacob. It says, Genesis chapter 27, 28, therefore the Most High give thee of the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine. Which represents the abundance and what the riches and the wealth that Israel will have. It says, verse 29, let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be everyone that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee. See? So ultimately, what this blessing goes all the way back unto Jacob, that we will rule over these other nations. So this will happen But what this will be perpetual. This will be forever, everlasting. As scriptures say, what we're gonna have an everlasting kingdom, and with the everlasting kingdom, what the other nations will be subject under us, and it will be impossible. The reason why the Lord, again, put us into captivity was because we were going off as a people, and we were being disobedient. But now that we're going to be changed unto the incorruptible bodies, we won't have the ability to go off anymore. We won't have the ability to sin anymore. Meaning what? The Lord won't have to put us in captivity anymore, because we're going to be perfect. So overall, we're going to be sin free. This is Psalm chapter 2. And 7, it says, I will declare the decree the Lord Yahweh hath said unto me, Thou art my son. This day have I begotten thee. Yeah, you see the capital S, because that's speaking about Yahweh Shai. It says, verse 8, Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. See? So ultimately, the heathen is already promised that the heathen will be under us as an inheritance. It says, verse 9, Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. And as we know, this links up onto Revelation chapter 2 and 26. It says, And he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations. Or yes, it says, to him will I give power over the nations. Yeah, when you get that word for rule, or power, rather, in the Greek, it says exousia. It says, the power of authority. It says the power of rule or government. The power of him whose will and commands must be submitted to by others and obeyed. See? So they're going to be in subjection under us. So this is what's promised unto those who overcome. Which the Israelites are going to be ones who overcome. It says Genesis Revelation chapter 2 and 27, it says, And he shall rule them with a rod of iron. As the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received them my Father. See? And we can get where Yahushua received that in Psalm chapter 2. By the way, this read a letter, this Yahushua speaking, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus. So when people think about Jesus, which is, Cesare Borgia, Serapis Christus, ultimately what it goes back onto, that image. Well, people think about, again, a weak, a white guy, with red plush cheeks, long hair, and, somebody who looks like, you see the picture for yourself. And, people think, when people see him, they think about unification of all nations. They think that he's going to come with love and, open arms for the whole world. Which is completely the opposite. No, Yahushua is coming back to divide. Ultimately, he's going to unify the elect with one another. With him, as scripture say, pretty much basically paraphrasing, the elect are going to meet Yahushua in the air. But he's going to completely destroy these other nations. Destroy them to the point where they have no rulership. And for the heathen that remain, because there will be, obviously the heathen will go extinct. But, because as scriptures say, again, we're going to rule over them who ruled over us. We're going to be those who had us as captives, they're going to be our captives. So obviously within the kingdom of heaven, there will be slaves and there will be servants and handmaids. The heathen will play that role, being our servants and our handmaids within the kingdom. Genesis chapter 2 and 27 says, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. As the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father. You see? Ultimately, Yahushua has been given that inheritance of the heathen. And Yahushua is going to pass that inheritance down onto us of the heathen. So the heathen will be our slaves and our servants. So hey, this is what's promised for the nation of Israel. And ultimately, what the elect will taste of it first, of that kingdom, and what that transfer of power onto what the nation of Israel from these other nations. The Lord's going to completely strip these other nations of their power, and we'll all power, well, pretty much under, of course, Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Well, hey, we're going to be given power over the heathen and over the earth, and what we're going to be 100% perfect. And we'll have, again, we're going to have the hearts of flesh. The second covenant is going to kick in, which is going to be the new perfect bodies and the new minds, and what the laws written within our minds. So, laws will be hardwired within us. Of course, we're going to have spiritual power. So all of these things are prophesied for the nation of Israel, starting with, of course, the elect of the nation of Israel. So that's what we're waiting for. This we're hoping for, which is what happened. Of course, we're just hoping that what we overcome and we make unto the end. That's our hope. That what Yahushua delivers us. Revelation chapter 13 and 10, it says, he that leadeth in captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and the faith of the saints. Yeah, so he that leadeth in captivity shall go into captivity. Exactly. So that's what's going to happen. And who led us into captivity? Ultimately, all these other nations had us in captivity. And what? We're being oppressed under these other nations. Number one, being Esau. But these other nations are also playing a role into oppressing us. Psalm chapter 83, they're literally confederate with one another to ultimately to blot out the nation of Israel. They want to eliminate us. So it says, he that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Yes, we're waiting for our enemies to go into captivity. The disciples were constantly asking Yahushua when the kingdom of heaven will be established. Why? Because, the disciples were in the Roman captivity. They're waiting for, deliverance onto the kingdom of heaven. So that, the second covenant kicks in. And we're given those new incorruptible bodies. That's what they're waiting for. And not being oppressed. And we're waiting for the same thing. So I believe it's a point. Lord Zoe blessed and edified. Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Gakorash Brakatham. Shalom.